Thank you, Excellency, for sharing your thoughts with us. Next, I am pleased to invite Mr. Jawad Majid, President Summit Bank, on stage to share his knowledge on economic potential of BRI, opportunities for regional states.
नामदहु नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Excellencies, faculty members of Bahria University, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is always a privilege, pleasure and honor to represent CGSS at different forums. And my special compliments to Colonel Khalid Taimur, who is, I would say, the main spirit behind all whatever is happening in CGSS. And also to the students of Bahria University, who have done a great job throughout the internship program and today's conference. Well, coming to the topic, it is called that this century is the century of economic growth, and that too about Southeast Asia and Asia. However, if we look at the gap between US, Europe, the developed countries, vis-a-vis Asia, so we see there is an infrastructure funding gap of about 26 trillion US dollars. It can be 2030, it can be 2050 also. I'll come to that later. Out of this gap, about 8 trillion is being or will be financed through Belt and Road Initiative of China. And I am sure almost slightly less than this will be supported and sponsored by the Eurasian infrastructure project. Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is a transcontinental long-term policy and investment program which aims at infrastructure development and acceleration of economic integration of countries along the route of historic Silk Road. This initiative was unveiled in 2013. Well, the aim was to promote the connectivity of Asia, Europe, and African countries and their adjacent seas, establish and strengthen partnership amongst the countries along the Belt and Road, set up all-dimensional, multi-tiered, and composite connectivity networks, and realize diversified, independent, balanced, and sustainable development in these countries. If we look at the macroeconomic impacts with the completion of different stages and eventually by 2050, if the BRI is completed, so the macro numbers suggest something what I've just presented. As I told you earlier, the potential is about 8 trillion investment, and that will be mainly channelized through BRI bonds, private capital investment, public-private partnership, of state-owned enterprises, etc. Moderate assumptions of BRI investment will have an impact of global GDP by about 1.3% by only 2030, and this will be multiplying by 2050. BRI leads to 25% reduction in road transportation margins and 5% on sea transport. And there will be a significant reduction on the time of import and export between the BRI countries. The BRI transport projects could increase trade between 1.7 to 6.2% in this region and the world. If we look at the export potential of individual countries, the capacity is from $5 billion to even $135 billion potential of an individual country to increase its export and revenue. And there is a potential of 8.7 million people who are living under extreme poverty conditions and 34 million from moderate poverty to get over that curve. Under the baseline conditions, the percentage of people living in extreme poverty with less than $2 a day is projected to decline from 10% from 2015 to 5.2% by 2030. Now I will just come to Pakistan's perspective, the part of BRI which is CPEC in Pakistan, and then I will try to touch Pakistan's perspective with the regional markets. So Pakistan is the 42nd largest economy of the world, with a GDP size of close to 300 billion US dollars, with a population of 220 million and a very diversified economy, a very balanced economy. We are not dependent on a specific sector to support our economy. So it is, as I told you, well balanced. If you look at the agriculture sector, its contribution is on the north of 20%. Industrial contribution is again about 25%. Rest, we have a huge services sector. And there is a new upcoming area, which is the information technology sector. We are one of the best and potential markets and one of the best emerging markets in this part of the world. That is, even substantiated in our exports, which have more than doubled in the last 1 year only in the startups and information technology sector. So the McKinsey reports say that the world center of economic gravity has shifted to Asia, as I told you earlier, and in the next few decades, it will further narrow down to the initial development which is actually being taken place on the CPEC, the Pakistan-China Economic Corridor. The magnitude as we speak is about 90 billion US dollars, to 87 to be exact. There are about 122 projects, out of which 32 are complete, and many of them are near completion by the end of this year. This should have been 2021. Sorry for this. The initial focus was on energy infrastructure, which was lacking in Pakistan, followed by the road infrastructure. Third will be the railways, and eventually it will all be directed towards the development of Gwadar port. The other important aspect was the Orange Train in Lahore. And the upcoming project, which is very important, is the ML1 railway project, which will totally transform and modernize the railway infrastructure of Pakistan, and it is estimated an investment of about 6.8 billion US dollars. There are another 27 social sector development projects, including health, education, agriculture, and poverty reduction, are expected to be completed soon. Notably, the signing of the free trade agreement in 2020 between China and Pakistan has really helped Pakistan in increasing its trade, especially on the export side. There has been an increase of close to 70% in our export only in 2021. CPEC has already created about 70,000 jobs, and we expect with the completion and the new ML1 projects and the Gwadar port will create another 800,000 jobs. That also includes the special economic zones. There will be an important area of tourism, which Pakistan has a great potential. So we have plans in CPEC to revitalize the tourism industry in Pakistan, improve transport infrastructure and the mobilities and access areas that will really, help us in getting the best out of the potential of the northern areas of Pakistan. So there have been same success stories in the region that we are in. In Central Asia, the current transportation infrastructure in many countries in the region is lacking. BRI could help to facilitate inter and intra-state movement of goods and people. If we look at a few projects, we have this Wahdat Railroad built by China Railway in Tajikistan. Then we have a few projects in Kazakhstan, as the ambassador also mentioned. Investment of about $5 billion. And then if we see Tajikistan, Uzbekistan are already playing their major part. But the pivotal role would be Afghanistan, as Worthy Ambassador was just mentioning. Allama Iqbal, who is very well known in the Central Asian republics also, there is a famous sher, which I will translate in English, that says that Afghanistan is the pivot of Asia. If there is peace and prosperity in Afghanistan, the whole Asia will prosper. If Afghanistan is in turmoil, Asia and this neighboring countries are also in turmoil. And we have seen that for the last 3 or 4 decades. Although with the current recent change in Afghanistan, there is no clear-cut direction from China on the future of BRI. However, the indications are quite positive. And as the Worthy Ambassador was just telling, only within Afghanistan there is a lot of potential on the mines and minerals. However, if we just connect, Afghanistan is connected to Pakistan through a simple road or railway, the potential is immense. And the potential is immense in the sense that the ambassador was mentioning that there is a potential of $500 million to $700 million of trade between only Uzbekistan and Pakistan. I personally think that it would multiply. It would just multiply. And the access to the hot waters, that too so close, like Samarkand and Bukhara is closer to Islamabad than Karachi is to Islamabad. All we need to do is to make sure that this new regime is acceptable and we are there to participate in the investment of this basic infrastructure. That will help us and that will help the Afghan people. As I was telling you that this BRI, if we connect CPEC with the BRI and eventually the Eurasian, I personally think that only Pakistan has a potential to increase its exports by 35 to 40 billion US dollars. And that would, and I'm sure that we are all one way or the other part of SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and SCO can actually play a great role in bridging and bringing together the synergies and integrate Eurasia and BRI. Because it is also very important that there should not be a duplication of infrastructure building. It should augment rather and supplement both these initiatives. Well, there are a few key takeaways. There is a flip side also, which I wanted to share, which is true for us in CPEC, which is true for all the BRI countries. Although there are a lot of economic benefits, the diplomatic terms, people-to-people connection will definitely improve. But if you look at the countries, the initial data in the last few years, I've just taken out a few countries. If you look at, there is a cost to this infrastructure development, because all these are either debt-related projects or are commercial projects. So certainly, if you look at this data, including Pakistan, there is a shift from the international donors towards China, and there is a significant shift. It is said that infrastructure development can never go wrong. I agree to that. Anywhere across the globe where you see any country, any continent which made the right infrastructure, eventually it is successful. However, initial few phases have issues. So it is very important, although BRI transport projects can expand trade, increase foreign investment and reduce poverty by lowering trade costs, yet for some countries the cost of new infrastructure could outweigh the gains initially. How? In two ways. One is the debt trap. Second is the utilization of that infrastructure on most immediate basis. For example, in Pakistan, we have gotten the energy, infrastructure in place, we have the roads. However, until and unless we have the special economic zones there, and the Gwadar port is operational, and China is actually, importing and exporting through this corridor, the revenues will have to match the debt repayments. So if there is a trade-off, then there is a problem. So hopefully there is this understanding between the two countries, and we are a lot of contracts have been renegotiated so that the cash flows are in line. Any infrastructure project, unless and until it has a complete ecosystem around it, would not work. And interconnectivity again is the key. Right now with Port Qasim and the Karachi port, these two ports are quite sufficient for Pakistan's domestic requirements. However, only Gwadar port, which would be completely developed, the gestation period and complete institution would take about 6 to 7 years. It will be one of the largest deep sea ports in the world. It has the capacity of close to 125 berths. This port is a key, not only for Pakistan. If we are connected through Afghanistan, this will be a port for Tajikistan, for Uzbekistan, for Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and even Kazakhstan. And in the end, I would just like to conclude that the way world is changing, this world is getting closer. The world is about conflict resolution. We see a world going towards infotech and biotech. The development in infrastructure, in technology that our generation has seen in the last 10, 15 years will only multiply in the next 1 decade. The next 1 decade will be a technological transformation which even we cannot imagine. We have the examples of these social medias and information technology, the Facebooks and Googles. People are changing, life is changing. I see a lot of conflicts being resolved on economic gains. That includes maybe if we are able to resolve Kashmir between India and Pakistan, this could be one of the greatest markets, not only for Central Asia, for the world. So thank you very much. Very good.
Thank you, sir.